Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. It is time to have a look at a roadmap post once again, talking about the separate battle ratings for different modes. We obviously had the thing from the community managers the other day talking about that this was going to come in pretty soon, and they've done a blog post about it. Sorry that this is a little bit later in the day than usual. I had some work stuff to do, so I had to prioritize. So, separate battle ratings for different modes. This is going to be coming in pretty soon before the actual major update, which is kind of cool. They actually have said we plan to introduce this one in the second major update of 2024, but we're able to finish it earlier. So that is pretty awesome. The idea is, well, pretty simple. Having separate battle ratings for vehicles, whether they're in aviation, ground, or naval battles. This specifically affects aircraft, and I think if anybody's been playing especially top-tier ground or even high-tier naval for a while, you'll know how abrasive a lot of the aircraft can be, mainly because they're trying to balance them between three separate modes. Now that they've set it up in a way so they don't have to balance it between three separate modes, instead they'll be balanced by individual modes, this is a huge change. This is very positive and really nice to see. One of the biggest changes of this year, which is absolutely wonderful. So they have got a table of this, and also they have some other postponements. But what we're going to do is, first of all, have a look at the battle ratings, give some opinions, and also talk about a few omissions, which kind of sucks, but we'll go through them. So first of all, let's just flip over here. I know it's a little bit tough to read, so bear with me. I can zoom in for you. So yeah, you have air realistic and ground realistic. So they're not changing naval right now. Naval does have a kind of interesting limit with aviation, where basically what happens with it is you can't take anything that's, I think, above 0.3 compared to the ship that you have. But yeah, it would be kind of cool if hopefully they get that soon, but right now that's not the case. First of all, the F-16s. So they are staying at this in air, but they are going down in BR when it comes to ground, which is very surprising. I thought what they were going to do at some point is decompress ground. We've talked about it in the past, that kind of needs to happen, and at least at the moment, that doesn't seem to be the case fully, especially with what they're doing. But with the F-16s going down, I'm a bit worried about that, because they do have some very good ordnance. It's just a little bit harder to use than others, because it isn't just simple point and click. You actually have to get into position, you have to get high, you have to get above the AAs, and then use stuff like the guided bombs, and so on and so forth. So those going down, I don't like them going down. I kind of get it, but I'd rather they didn't. The next one, I think we can all agree needed to happen, the Su-25. The only reason this thing was 11.7 was because of its air realistic setup. It wasn't because of the fact that it was, needed to be here. So now, the only time you'll see this vehicle is in a full up tier or top tier, and that's exactly how it should have been from the start. As I've talked about before this system came in, the system is incredibly positive, but for years and years and years, there was a complete issue with War Thunder, with the fact that you had all of these different vehicles that were just allowed to dominate in certain game modes and allowed to just, be just really annoying in other ones or completely worthless. And this set of BR changes just proves it to a T. The fact that the Su-25 SM3 is going up a whole BR bracket from 11.7 to 12.7 should tell you that. With the GR7 going up 2, because it has some ground ordnance, don't really agree with that either, especially since British top tier isn't exactly the greatest. The Italian going up 2 just because it has access to the same stuff as the GR7, I believe, so not really a surprise there. They're actually trying to get people to use the Phantoms, which is kind of cool. The Phantoms do have some interesting ordnance on them. The issue is they don't have the super smart stuff, so, some of them have, I think, like Mavericks, but a lot of them just have CCIP with their bombs and rockets, whereas they don't have as many guided munitions as the others. So the fact that these are going down is positive. They'll actually be used, which is good. And then also stuff like the MiG-23ML, for example, going down is kind of nice too. What we're seeing here is a lot of high-tier vehicles, by the way, which are going either down or up. It isn't a lot of mid-tier or low-tier stuff. I'm hoping that this is like the first set of changes that we're going to see, and then later on, we will also have some of the mid-tier stuff looked at, because it's all well and good sorting out top tier. Top tier right now is in a bit of a crazy position, but at the same time, there's a lot of mid-tier aircraft, especially light attackers like bombers, which need a bit of help, especially in air realistic. So with the MiG-27K, that is actually going down in air realistic, but staying the same in ground. Kind of surprising, but then again, it's a lot more limited in air from an air-to-air role compared to others. They're screwing with all the MiG-23s too, so they're all going down in BR by quite a lot in ground, which is fair because, once again, they're air superiority fighters. They don't really belong in ground, but if this gives them an opportunity to be played, it gives them an opportunity. Same with the MiG-21s from everybody. Once again, I don't think this means you'll actually see them, but at least they're there. You might see the Tornadoes, but they're only moving down the German ones, which are the worst ones out of the bunch, so you probably won't. They'll still stay where they are. Huge changes, though, for the A7K and A7E. Hopefully we can get a few more of these. Both of these vehicles are very good in ground, but in air, they're completely worthless because they took away their air spawn. Most of the things they face have very good all-aspect missiles and also are a lot faster. And you're basically just a bomb truck at the end of the day. But in ground, you have a lot of good munitions, like stuff like Mavericks and such like that. So yeah, it's a little bit hard to balance these, and I'm glad that they're doing that. Same with the Su-22s. The Su-22s I actually think should actually go down in air realistic too, but going down in ground is a nice start. The Su-17 as well is just in a horrific place compared to others. F5E goes up in ground, should also go up in air, but probably won't because of this. It does have access to Mavericks, but at the same time, it also has very good flight performance, so I would have just put it up both. The Kafir Canard goes down in BR in ground. You can't put it down in air, even though people use it as a bomb truck. That thing is very powerful when it's allowed to be. Same with the Su-22 UM3K, the F5E for China, of course, going up too, and all the F104s going down a lot. It seems like... Right, when I thought about this list, I thought they were going to do this, where they just take a ton of fighters, which just don't belong in ground anyway, no matter how much you change their BRs, and they're just going to stick them at really low BRs, instead of actually dealing with a lot of the strike aircraft, specifically at mid-tier, that they're not going to screw with. So that kind of sucks, if I'm honest with you, because, you know, it means that you'll probably see these vehicles more in air, more in ground, but they're just not really required. I think it's much better looking at other things. The Buccaneer doesn't go down in air realistic. It's only going up in ground. Are you mad? How? How is this the case? You cannot tell me that the Buccaneer S2B in air should be 10-3. Are you nuts? The Su-17 as well has got shafted too. You're telling me that thing's a 10-3 vehicle in air? Some of these changes are very conservative, and hopefully it's because it's the first step towards these things. But the idea that the Buccaneer doesn't go down in BR, that is disgraceful. In air, I should say. In ground, it can go up as much as it wants, because it has the ordnance for ground. But in air, the ordnance doesn't make a lot of sense. And one of the problems, actually, I was thinking about the other day, was in order to combat these things being at specific BRs, they ended up giving a lot of them access to stuff like AIM-9Ls, which they just shouldn't have done. They just shouldn't have done. They should have not given them AIM-9Ls, kept them, you know, basically behind, and then added them with this update. Because then, what you would have is vehicles which would fit their BR better. If you take the S2B's AIM-9Ls off of it, it goes lower BR straight away in air, and it would have a much better time. But now that they've added it without them, it's now stuck in the doldrums. The AMX going up in BR is good too. It needed it, same as the Jaguars going up and the A6E. The A6E is disgraceful in ground if it's left alone, and a lot of the time it is because of its BR. Same with stuff like the A10s. Good to see them go up. Super Etontard going up by 2 BR brackets. Ooh, Q5L. This is probably one of the biggest changes. Q5L is such a silly aircraft, okay? So It has access to guided munitions. It has a good targeting pod on it, but it has no countermeasures and no way of being able to actually get any score in aerialistic. You could put that thing at 9.0 and it wouldn't make a difference. It still would be rough. And the biggest thing, it doesn't get any stock ordnance. Why? It's a strike aircraft. How can you have a strike aircraft designed for striking have no unlocked ordnance when it's stock, even if it's just some bombs and rockets? So, because the Q5L has these horrific 23 millimeters, which you're not going to hit anything with unless you're trained on them, and it's just going to be a pain. So these BR changes are very positive for the Q5L, but it also shows you what a horrific situation it's in. And one of the things that has to be looked at with the Q5L is its stock configuration and its spading ability, because you need to fully modify it for it to be useful. This thing at 10.7 in ground will be awful unless you have all of the modifications for it. It doesn't even have countermeasures, for God's sake. MiG-21 going down, once again, it's not really needed. The AIT going up is not a surprise. And then also the A4s going up too. 8.7 to 9.7. Oh my god. So, you know what this list tells you? How much imbalance was in the game. Right here, it's in black and white. You know, I talked about it last year, and I talked about it the year before with a lot of these vehicles. A whole BR difference. So when you're playing the ground mode, and just remember, I want to put this out, okay? There was a Q&A that Gaijin did. I think they did it last year. And in that Q&A, they said that every time they looked at making separate BRs for separate game modes, they looked at the statistics and it told them that there wasn't a lot of difference between these vehicles' performance based on their game mode. Meaning that for them, when looking at the stats, the actual statistics were similar between how an A4 was working in aerialistic compared to ground realistic. And now, after a few months, you're telling me that some of these vehicles need a whole BR bracket change? Based on what? If it wasn't the case before, has it just somehow become the case now? Or were you just, you know, telling a few fibs? Because when I read that question, and when I read that answer from that Q&A, I just went, no, there's no way. You must just be looking at the wrong statistics. I've defended Gaijin a lot when it comes to statistical analysis. I think they're very good at it. You know, I understand there's, you know, a decent amount of imbalance, especially at top tier, because of its inherent nature, and there are problems across the board with certain mechanics, but I think overall they do a pretty good job when it comes to balancing. But when they said that, I was just like, that cannot be the state, because these vehicles are fundamentally used differently in different game modes. And this set of BR changes proves it. So I don't know who wrote that, or I would love to see just somebody from Gaijin just come out and say which statistics were you looking at from that. Because I do not want to be lied to. And unfortunately, that answer there does not line up with what I'm seeing in front of my face. And that's not good. Because then trust becomes an issue with these things. And you can't have trust be destroyed by this stuff. So it was either somebody before was saying that it just wasn't the case, or something has miraculously changed over the last 6 months. You can pick one if you want. I think I know what it is, but I'd rather, you know, somebody come out and say it. The Alpha Jet's changing as well is pretty good too. Nice to see. I would say with a lot of these strike aircraft, as I said, they are being very conservative, meaning that they're changing them in ground first, which I think is good. But a lot of these air ones could also go down. Like the A4s, for example, right? You put down the MiG-15 BIS, you put down the Sabres, you put down the MiG-17 PF. Do the A4s need to be at 8.7? Should an A4E early, or an A4B, by the way, because, hey, guess what? The A4B isn't on this list. The A4B is 8.7 still, by the way. Does an A4B, which is fundamentally worse than the A4E, does that need to be at 8.7? Could we maybe put those vehicles down as well? or maybe, you know, have a bit of decompression in that area. Maybe that could happen. So yeah, stuff like the A4Es, it would be worth them putting them down in Aerialistic 2. Alpha Jets, maybe as well. I need to play them though. You know, that's something I haven't done recently. So that's something to look at. So as a first set of changes, this is very good. It's very positive. But it does raise more questions, and it also, at the same time, has basically meant that what people have been saying for a long time, including myself, is evidently true. And it's good to see it in writing. It's always nice to, you know, have a look at that stuff and kind of be shown it. So that's the battle ratings. Obviously, let me know if you've missed any, because, you know, discussions are always going forward. And of course, there's postponement news about the next set of things. So they are postponing a few separate systems. They talked about the research bonuses for new nations. They're delaying until after the second major update. So that doesn't really give us a time frame on when it's going to happen. Hopefully it's between the second update and the third update of the year. But it says, in essence, our programmers need more time to create this feature, and it's at the highest priority of the lead game designers. Apart from all the other stuff you're adding, right, over the last year. We anticipate it sometime after the second major update and one smaller update, or when it's fixed, and we apologize that it has been delayed, which is fair. They did actually talk about adding some new aviation into the game alongside the battle rating changes, so look for that. They're also postponing public squads and mechanics for searching for a squad based on the interests of players in game. So this one just needs a bit more work. To be honest, like, that was nice to see on the setup, but I'm not sure I saw anybody clamoring for it. It's one of those things that is good, positive, but not going to get a lot of attention, right? And I do know a lot of people who are looking for squads, but the main thing is people who don't seem to understand how squadron vehicles work and, you know, how to actually get access to them. So that might be something that might be worth, like, putting in a bit of information in the game or something, which would be really nice. Then, of course, we have the updated kind of infographic of what they're going to do. They've actually ticked that they've done this so far. I'm not sure if it's in the game yet or not. But yeah, according to them, it's done. So there you go. And then the social features will come in the summer, and also the economy stuff. So hopefully, as long as nothing gets postponed again, the stuff they're not adding in the second major update will come probably in July, probably in August, before September, because September is when the third update is of the year. Remember, when it comes to updates, you have one in like March, April, you have one at the end of May and then June, then one in September, one in November, one in December. That's the general setup. So, you know, we'll probably see it in August. They usually do like a little update then. One of the ones that was around that time was actually Regia Marina, if you remember that. They set that up during that time. It's not seen as a major update, but it's like a minor major one just before the end of summer. Overall, it's a very positive post. Lovely to see this new mechanic in. It was needed for such a long time, and now it's here. I think a lot of us can rest easy. The thing is, has it gone far enough yet, and will it go further in the future? I'm sure it will, especially if they have different statistical bases, and it sucks for the research stuff. I'm really looking forward to that. I hope it comes soon, and it'll be fantastic. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think about the changes. Look after yourselves. Peace be with you. Bye-bye. I'd like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Gixie, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem Arslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.